Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly book study. Being myself and have a surprise this week. Marlene Reisman I had her scheduled to be our co-host, and it was my mistake. I didn't follow up. I didn't send her an email with a schedule, so she wasn't ready to be here, didn't know she was on for today. And lovely Jenny has agreed to be our substitute this week. Thank you, Jenny, for saying yes on a short notice. Appreciate it.
Delighted, Phil. It's lovely to be with you and everyone again.
Thank you. And my apologies to you, Marlene, if you're here or if you're watching the recording. Totally my fault, and just made a mistake on not following. You were the only one I didn't send a follow-up to. I don't know why. I guess because Jenny was supposed to be here. So we're looking at chapter 10 this week. Peace and happiness lie in the depths of our being. I love the sound of that. And Jenny, I'm just going to invite you to sort of highlight what's your besides the title, probably the title too. What do you really love about this page?
Well, the title is beautiful. It says everything, doesn't it? But let's start with that first paragraph. It says, well, once infinite being has contracted into the form of a person, it loses touch with its innate peace and happiness. And for this reason, suffering and the search for happiness inevitably accompany the forgetting of ourself. And it's natural for a newborn baby to gradually separate what it considers to be myself from everything else in the world. Initially, when it's born, there doesn't seem to feel any separation, but then gradually, as it grows up, there does. So we've all grown up to believe that we are a body mind, a person, but it's equally natural to look further and discover our true nature of infinite awareness. And there's a lovely video that I would encourage anyone who's interested in that kind of progression to look at from Rupert. And it's called the neti process from child to adult. And so you'll find that on YouTube.
Wonderful.
It's a very good video, that one.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, we can put that in a link and put it in the email that goes out, make it easy for everyone.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that I like that analogy that you just gave, because a baby has to kind of remove itself psychologically from its mother at some point. And we, of course, we don't cognize that we've done that until we start the search for our self-identity, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I like the idea that Rupert puts in the first paragraph, that it's just a matter of losing touch with our innate peace and happiness. And it feels like, okay, so it's not gone, it's not lost. We've lost touch with it, and it's still available for us.
Yes, I think that's important. It's always been there, and I think that's something we recognize. When we recognize our true nature, we know part of that recognition is the knowing that we've always known it. It's always been there, that we've just thought of it in the wrong way, looked at ourselves in the wrong way.
Right. And also when you look at what suffering means. Suffering is almost an identifier of the search for happiness.
Yes, I think it encourages that search,
Yeah.
doesn't it? You know, we feel something is missing. We want something more. There must be more to life, and so we go out and we look for it.
Yeah. There must be a better way. When you start the search, initially it's like, oh, that would be fun. Oh, I'm going to do that, or oh, I'm going to do that, and it's all pointing to the search for happiness in disguised as an object of experience.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
What else did you see on this page?
Yes, I think this is actually on the next page 90. Suffering ensues when we allow awareness of objects to eclipse awareness of being, and happiness is revealed when we allow awareness of being to outshine awareness of objects. And it's really the identification with objects that's the problem, that causes the problem. We imagine we need some object, as you said, to make us happy. If I had a car that didn't break down, a nice job, a bigger house, more money, a loving relationship, and we look for all of those things, but we discover eventually that nothing is going to make us happy. When we get any of those things, it seems to bring happiness for a while, until we desire something else.
Right.
Or else often, until we realize we are happiness itself. Yeah.
And we're so habitual, we're so addicted to that that sense of neediness, or the sense of searching, that as soon as we have it, if we buy something, as soon as we have it, a day or two later, it's like, okay, what's next? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. This part where it says suffering ensues when we allow awareness of objects to eclipse awareness of being, that statement is easily misunderstood. It's been misunderstood by me, because when you first read a statement like that, you think it's talking to the person, right?
Yes.
And the allowing, if we really don't make choices, as says Rupert and Francis, and you cross-examining, well, does it really mean this? And I'm trying to find a loophole where decisions are made. And I love the fact that it's getting clearer and clearer that Bill doesn't make any decisions.
Yes, exactly, and that's important. That allowing is done by what we really are. It's done by awareness itself,
right?
And it allows itself to be eclipsed, or it allows itself to be revealed.
Yeah, and somehow the seeming separate self is in the understanding, it relaxes its identity from being a separate self, and clarity comes in. And of course, Bill thinks he's getting it.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
It is, yes.
But it's also a little bit of a miracle, because I'm not going to screw it up, because I'm not doing it. So and who's the I that's talking? Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So on that first page, there was, in the second paragraph, that it says, this search can never be satisfied by acquisition of an object, substance, activity, state of mind, or relationship. Peace and happiness are the very nature of ourself when it is no longer limited by experience. relieved of limitation. And in that, those three words, relieved of limitation, in my mind is don't touch it. In my mind is don't log in to this experience. Relieved of limitation, our true nature simply shines by itself.
Yes, yes. It's I think of it as a kind of surrender, really. You're surrendering all of the limitations that you have imposed on yourself.
Yeah.
And that surrender is really just a relaxation. It's not something anyone or anything does. It's something that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says at the very bottom of that page, we are like one who shops for colored stones in the market without knowing they have a diamond in their pocket.
Yes. Mm.
Yeah. That reminds me of that analogy of someone that owns a priceless painting, right? They've got this priceless painting in their house, or they've got this big treasure, and they spend their whole life poor, not knowing that it was right there in the house for them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's significant that it's the diamond in the pocket, which is important, rather than coloured stones. So the coloured stones, that represents the colouring of experience, but the diamond is transparent.
Oh, good. Thank you for picking that out. Really good. And then moving back to, is it page 90, the next page? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You want to look further on that one? Do you have something on that one?
Yes, yes. Just at the end of that, he says, just as the sky is never agitated by the weather, so the background of awareness is never disturbed by experience. Its nature is peace, and that's what's important, to see it as the background, and all of experience is what's happening on top of that. But what we are is that still peaceful background.
Yeah. And I think that is why, if you're in a webinar with Rupert, or you raise your hand, you are called on, he's always moving your attention back to that essential nature, the essential self.
Yes, exactly.
Because there you're untouched. What you thought was occurring is untouched in that relaxing into that space.
Yes, yeah. And he goes on page 91, our true nature is complete in itself. It needs nothing from experience, and is thus happiness itself. And it's that sense of incompleteness, that sense of lack, which is inherent in the belief to be a separate entity, a limited entity, which causes the suffering.
Yeah, he said that this does not invalidate experience or imply we should not attend to it. It simply suggests that it is a mistake to invest our happiness in it.
Yes. There's a kind of confidence that develops, knowing that whatever happens, it's all fundamentally okay. And if we look back at really upsetting things that have occurred in our lives, we can often see that actually it was the best thing that could have happened, maybe because it enabled us to learn something really important that we couldn't have learned any other way, or perhaps it's because it propelled us away from something far worse than the situation we were actually in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it even could be that this was just, this was going to take, this is a time saver. This experience is a time saver, and it's going to keep you from many years even. It could, and I don't think of this as a master plan, like there's somebody planning all of this. I think that consciousness is just in movement and flow. And when we get out of our own way, just simply by relaxing as awareness, as relaxing in that place, all the answers are given.
Yes.
We don't have to go through hurdles of doing stupid things, which I don't, and I think at the at the level of mind where all decisions are made, that's where it's more engaged in the flow, maybe because, and this is of course my speculation, but that it's just becoming more and more aware of its own beingness, and the bodysuit identify or is connecting with that influence.
Yes, yes. And if we just see things as happening, and not take them personally, in other words, just see, well, what's happening is happening. It doesn't mean that we have to be passive. We can allow the body mind to respond appropriately. That's absolutely natural. But it means we don't take anything personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Landon has a question on the chat, Jenny. When you encounter a difficulty in a relationship that gets you stuck in a difficult feeling of reactivity, is that also allowing awareness of objects, a difficult encounter, to eclipse awareness of being?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think that's right. Often we go into a relationship wanting something from that relationship. Usually, ultimately wanting happiness from that relationship. So when there's a difficulty, then not always, but on many occasions, it's because we're not getting what we hoped for from that relationship. So that was desire. That's desire for an object. It's not a physical object like a car or a house. But it's still an object.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember for many of you, I mean, some of you may know that Lisa and I, we were nearly divorced about 5 years ago. And I remember having these conflicts. And what I found to restore the energy within my own self and the house was when I just didn't I didn't argue, I didn't try to make a point. When I relaxed as awareness, it was restorative. It brought the energy all the way down, and we were able to talk to each other just by doing that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And if you can talk together, feeling each other as being oneself, not feeling any sense of separation, and then you can discuss the situation, because usually all these arguments are about some kind of situation. You can discuss that in a much more impersonal way, and you can come to some kind of agreement about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you think it's because you're getting wiser and older, but and that seems to be the case. But when you have an experience that gives you the same results over and over again, you often can just say, "Well, I'm not doing that anymore. That didn't feel good.
Yes, yeah.
That made me suffer." Rick has a comment, understanding the relationship between our true nature, peace and happiness, and experience itself, very profound. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Awareness isn't dependent on any experience. Yeah. And you know what, Jenny and everyone here, I think it's like we are so fortunate to be drinking in this understanding at such a level. This is a fairly, this is cutting edge. These are cutting edge ideas that really release you from the experiences that aren't fun. And now you can live in this bodysuit in a whole new experience.
Yes, and you can enjoy life so much more. You can enjoy whatever life brings, instead of always looking forward to some event in the future. You can enjoy what's here now, what's happening now.
Yeah. Yeah. Your whole life changes. And,
Yes.
and it also, it's, I saw that Shelley said, how long did it take for that to happen, Bill? It took a few years. And now it's settled down. We don't have arguments anymore. And it's just been, I mean, it's like we turned a corner. And I really think that this experience, this direct experience, and making a priority of resting as awareness, and it starts to drive the bus.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
There's at the bottom, the second to the last paragraph on 90. He says, at first glance, I like this analogy of the blue sky, where he says, at first glance, the blue sky looks like a temporary appearance within the clouds, just as happiness seems at first to be a fleeting experience arising between our afflictive emotions. The blue sky is, of course, the continuous background of the passing clouds, just as happiness is the ever-present background of all changing feelings. And that's a clear understanding of how this, clouds, they sort of drift away, just as the things that eclipse our true nature. Those things, they drift away when we make and I don't know that we actually, it seems like Bill does it, but this is being done, and it's an allowing where the passing cloud just passes by and the blue sky gets more and more and more.
Yes, and even if clouds come back, then we still see them as just clouds, and we're still connected with that blue sky. It's like, when you go up in an aeroplane and it's all cloudy and raining on the ground, and then the aeroplane climbs higher and higher, and eventually it gets above the clouds, and it's just in the blue sky. And it's knowing that you come back down to the ground, but you know then that the blue sky is always there above those clouds, and it's exactly the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. And Patty said, yes, divine flow is way better than acting out the conditioning in the finite mind of the seemingly separate person. Amen to that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Jenny says, does relaxing to experience in awareness mean always saying yes to everything? Page 91. This does not invalidate experience or imply we should not attend to it.
Yes. Obviously we have to be careful about what we're saying yes to. In essence, we say yes to everything that awareness produces. Everything is the production of awareness, the ultimate reality. But that doesn't mean that as a body mind, we don't respond to it. So as a body mind, we notice if there is unkindness or cruelty, and it's natural for us. It's an impersonal response to respond to that, and that response may, at a relative level, mean saying no to what's happening, saying no, this should not be happening. Please stop that right away. That is not kind, and that's fine. But still, we're saying yes to that overall experience. But the overall experience includes our response to it, as well as the original circumstances and incident.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that to be the no sometimes just it has a clean, not sometimes, but the no often just has a certainty about it. And it's
Yes.
clean, it's factual, it's not reactive energy. It's just,
Yes.
and it's almost like it's given to you.
Yes. It comes naturally, uncolored by the belief in being a limited entity.
Yeah. Jenny, I like this at the very, and I think this is sort of a follow-up to that question also. Just as empty space before anything appears in it cannot be agitated, for there is nothing there which could do so. Our essential self or being before the arising of any experience contains nothing in itself other than itself, which could possibly disturb it.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's that resting as aware presence. You know, it's so funny when I sent this book to a friend of mine about maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago. And she said, I said, did you read the book? I talked to her last week. I said, did you read the book? Yeah, he keeps saying the same thing over and over and over again, a little different way, right?
well, it does, but that's what's important for us to understand. And if we don't understand it one way, then maybe we'll understand it another way.
Yes. Well, and it really does, it does take repetitious ideas and understanding to detach us from our old fixed identity.
Yes, it is. It's a question of coming back to our understanding, gaining that understanding in the first place, and then to keep returning to it. So it's nice to have a book and a smallish book like this one to hand, so that when you feel like it during the day, you just go and sit down and be quiet and maybe read a couple of paragraphs or so, and then just relax into that understanding.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, that's it. And it doesn't always have to be a book. It just can be that experience that understanding and awareness brings as a new, I don't know, a new experience of peace. It is our own peace and happiness that we're experiencing.
Yes. We don't necessarily need a book. We can just sit down in silence and enjoy just being in presence.
Yeah. Anything else on 92 that you see, Jenny?
Yes, he says the natural condition is peace. It does not need to be made peaceful by effort, practice, or discipline. It simply needs to be recognized as such. It recognizes itself, so it's not something that we do. And in fact, if we try to make ourselves peaceful when we're feeling agitated or upset or angry, it often makes the situation worse, because you've got two ideas going up against each other. So instead of effort, then all that's needed is just that relaxation of everything we're holding on to, just kind of joyful surrender.
Yeah, yeah. There's a comment that Shelley made. My niece quit her job. She was working at a meat processing plant. The company left a truckload of chickens out in the cold and they all died and had to be disposed of. My heart really hurt. Still brings up hurt to think about it. I am very sensitive.
Yes, I can understand that. I love animals too, and I hate to see animals suffering or hear about animals suffering. And I think it's natural to feel a sense of horror at that, and very natural that her niece quit her job. I certainly wouldn't want to work for a company that allowed that sort of thing to happen. And sometimes that's the best thing. It was probably impossible for the niece to create any change within that company. Often it isn't. Depends what position you hold, really.
Yeah.
But if you can't, then yeah, I think best to get out.
Yeah, and I don't think that's another situation where I think when we're in environments that hurt us, it's love that is being eclipsed by the experience, and
Yes.
love will inspire movement, and it could be, I'm quitting, this isn't working for me. And that can go with all kinds of things. It's just a feeling that, yeah, I have to, this energy isn't working. And of course you don't run away from it. You have a knowing that I have to leave this space.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was a good decision.
Yeah. Oliver said it's the same approach the course uses. Undoing requires repetition. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Purification or remembering, reminding. It's all part of the we think we're changing our mind, but really we're relaxing into the understanding. We're relaxing into the surrender of our true nature.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It says at the second paragraph at the top of 93, he refers to Krishnamurti that said, I don't mind what happens. Okay, let me start at the top. Happiness is unconditional because it is not caused by or dependent upon anything that does or does not take place in experience. When Krishnamurti said, I don't mind what happens, he didn't mean to imply that he did not care. He simply meant that his happiness was not invested in the content of experience.
Yes, and that really sums up most of this chapter, doesn't it? We don't need to do anything to be happy. We just need to recognize that our true nature is happiness itself, and then we can enjoy all the experiences that life brings, the good experiences and the bad experiences from which we learn.
Yeah. He says in the last paragraph, the answer is simply that our innate happiness is obscured. No, he says above that, he says, if happiness is the nature of ourself and like ourself remains present throughout all experience, we might wonder why we do not feel at peace and happy all the time. The answer is simply that our innate happiness is obscured, at least partially, when we allow ourselves to become lost in the content of experience. And as a result, we cease knowing ourselves as we essentially are. The forgetting of our true nature eclipses our innate happiness, and suffering follows.
Yes, and that's really what he's been explaining throughout this chapter. We forget our true nature and we relapse into believing ourselves to be limited, to be a body mind, and because we feel we're a limited body mind, we feel incomplete, and we need something from experience to make us feel whole and happy. And that's why that forgetting of our true nature eclipses innate happiness, because we're always looking for happiness somewhere else, and so the suffering follows. But then he goes on to say something very encouraging. He says, even in our darkest moments, the longing for happiness remains. This longing is our true nature shining in the midst of suffering. It is our self calling itself back to itself. There is either happiness or the longing for happiness, but never its absence.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because what he's pointing to there is that we just need to respond to that call, to the self calling it back to itself, not to ignore it, just to allow it to respond to it. It's an invitation from ourself, and it's an implicit reminder of our true nature. And the more we're reminded, the more we end up living in that blue sky.
Yeah. Have you noticed? I mean, have you noticed that when you're working on these, or when you're living in these ideas, and you're in your day-to-day activity as the person, and something that you do or say, or someone says or does to you or in your direction, sometimes that can spark just the slightest little twinge of energy that you just sense that something's there. And in my mind, that's the trigger, or that's the impulse that says to pause or rest and be aware of that, even if you don't know what it is.
Yes, it can just be a sensation in the body, rather than necessarily a very specific thought. It could just be a tiny tension that suddenly arises, which has no functional reason. And exactly as you say, just to pause and relax and sink into what we really are is often makes it just melt. If it doesn't melt, then at that point, and I think very often it does, but if it doesn't, then it's really worth inquiring into it and investigating it. Does this come from a sense of lack? If someone has insulted us, for example, and that was the was the trigger, then often that's a sense of lack. Because if we're whole and complete, then we can't be insulted. So that's just one example.
Yeah.
So really just seeing, and then sometimes you can see below that specific kind of sense of lack. He shouldn't say that to me, type of feeling. And then you just look a little bit more deeply. Well, what is this I? Does this I really lack anything at all?
Yeah.
And then that's a bit of inquiry you can do, but only if it hasn't disappeared. Often it will just dissolve in an instant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the important part of it's very subtle. You don't follow a witch hunt. It's not necessary, because when you inquire, I mean, you can just ask. I wonder what that is. I wonder what that it was, and it will be revealed in the way that is most helpful, I think.
Yes, it's always an inquiry into the self that feels insulted, rather than the circumstances of the insult or the person who made the insult. It's always the one who feels sort of what is the nature of that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Melissa said, I often feel things and don't remember to pause. Join the party. I mean, you're in good company. That would be all of us.
Yes.
And it comes in with this, I think it just gets more noticing. And but you're in good company, Melissa. So what else do we have here? Let's turn to page 94. Happiness, or the longing for happiness, but never its absence. That was a carryover from 93. Yeah.
Yes. Instead of being aware of thoughts, images, feelings, sensations, and perceptions, we may simply be aware of ourselves. We rest in the feeling of being, or the knowledge I am. And that's really what you were describing, Bill. It's the kind of sinking back into pure awareness. There's nothing wrong with thoughts, perceptions, images per se. There's nothing wrong with them at all. But if we're getting identified with them, if they're arising on behalf of a sense of lack, or they're covering up a sense of lack, then they're not helpful. So then the solution is to go back to that pure being, that completely neutral background, the essence of ourself, and just rest there for a little while. Doesn't necessarily need to be for very long. And then when the thoughts, perceptions, images all come back again, then they're not coming back with that same degree of identification. You bring with you that knowing of your own being.
Yeah. And it is even though this isn't the progressive path, it seems to be a gradual understanding that allows the seeming separate mind to release itself from the identity of the bodysuit. It seems to be a relaxing. It's mostly doesn't happen like overnight. If it did, it would probably scare us so bad they'd have to put us in a insane, in some kind of a, we'd need
Yes.
help.
Yes, and it's a distancing of mind from awareness. Mind is always changing. It's always coming up with new stuff. It's not what we really are. What we really are is completely still, completely neutral. It's our essential being. So it's seeing very clearly that distinction, which yes, I think once it's seen, it's seen, but then we tend to forget it, and the gradual part is that kind of living our life in alignment with what we've seen and what we've understood.
Yeah.
And that does take time, and I think Rupert says that doesn't really ever end. That goes on forever. We get more and more. Our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, our relationships, all of those get gradually more and more aligned with what we've seen and what we've understood of our true nature.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it begins to embody the personal self experience, the somehow that is pervaded into the experience of this body mind.
Yes, yeah.
Let's see. We have there was something that someone said on the board that was this this middle sentence here that says, we cannot know happiness. We can only be it. We cannot be unhappy. We can only know it.
Yes, and that's really a very deep statement, because if we start with the first part, we cannot know happiness. We can't know happiness with the mind, because the happiness that we're talking about here is the happiness of our true nature, which is beyond the mind. It's not made out of mind stuff. Mind stuff is made out of it. So it's the other way around. And then if we look at the other side of the equation, we can only know unhappiness. Well, unhappiness is a state of the mind. It's a state in which our natural happiness is blocked. So we can know, the mind can know its own states. That's easy, but it's a knowing by the mind, and we are not ourselves in our essence unhappy.
Right, right. And so it would also be identifying the mind that is divested of its true nature is the mind that would know unhappy.
Well, the true nature of the mind is just that flow of perceptions and feelings and thoughts. So the true nature of the mind is limited, and that's just how it is. In the same way that the body as a
Right.
as a physical object is equally limited, but we are not that. And that's what's important. Our true nature is unlimited. So the mind just receives this flow of experience, and also it processes. It has a processing capability. So it's a bit like a robot. A robot can process images, but ultimately it's awareness that knows, that knows itself and knows its reality.
Yeah.
And knows that its reality is happiness.
Right. Yeah, that's a kind of a tricky statement in understanding where is the mind, the mind that isn't identified as a seeming separate self. Is the mind in movement and harmony with the experience of knowing and identifying as self, as being?
Yes, exactly. It's part of that kind of alignment, because mind is just a flow of thoughts and perceptions. So it's and feelings become aligned with our understanding, our knowing of our own being. And so mind doesn't have to superimpose this concept of being a separate entity and identify with that.
Yeah.
It can see it as a concept, and it can see it as a concept that it has previously been identified with, that it might be in danger of being identified with again, that it's a natural thing sometimes for that identification to occur. But at the same time, it can see that as a concept only, and not as a reality.
It learns and then knows to don't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick said in a comment, sincere curiosity is a critical component of inquiry. Being interested for no other reason than the love for truth. Truth can never really be found, only realized, noticed, and clearly seen. It's beautiful. Thank you, Rick, for that. Awesome. And what else do we have on this page? Anything, Jenny? 94. Should we go to 95? Let's see. This unlimited, ever-present, imperturbable, and inherently fulfilled being that we essentially are cannot be attained by effort, practice, or discipline. I love that.
Yes. And what that also means is that there's no need to judge ourselves for having been temporarily lost in experience, because that too is natural. It's not that we failed to practice that has caused that. It's just happened. It's just the activity of awareness. So happiness isn't something you can attain through practice, as he says.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Jenny, for that. And Rick said, no, there was a question. Rana said, so I am unhappy is always a false statement.
Yes, it depends what you mean by I. So if you know yourself, know I as awareness, then that can never be true, because I can never have any qualifications. It can't be qualified. If you feel yourself to be a separate entity, and I refers then to that separate entity, and you identify with a body mind, then yes, that body mind can be unhappy, and in that case, your statement is true. So it depends what you mean by I.
Yeah. And you, I mean, you can Rupert uses a question on whose behalf is this statement being made?
Yes, yes, exactly. What I is it? Is it the I
Right.
of awareness,
Right.
or is it the I of an imagined separate self?
Yeah. And passing cloud.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Rick made a comment. Too often mind gets a bad rap, unfortunate. It simply isn't the best tool for the job. Yeah, sometimes the mind does. I mean, when you look at it, if you give attention to the experience, or if you give attention to the objects of experience, there's just one place to go. Just, I mean, rest as awareness, and then the answer is given.
Yes, and use the mind for what it's good at.
Yes, what it's good
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
And what it's good at is not taking you to your true nature, because that's beyond its capabilities.
Yeah. Yeah. It's for having fun, coming from the right place where everybody
Yes.
wins. And you included. You stay in that experience of presence. And Manfred said, the mind is only a problem as long as it plays the master. Once it knows its position, it becomes a beautiful servant. Yes.
That's a
Yes.
lovely statement. I like that
That's
very
beautiful.
much.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. It comes under what I say, it comes under the leadership of the heart, or it comes under the leadership of awareness, aware presence.
Yes.
And then, there's no obstacles to bar your way. There's no obstacles to peace. You're in the flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Judy Yeomans, just as everything within awareness, give blessings and love to mind, experience, and all else. Otherwise, it becomes judgment.
Yes. Yes.
And what I've found is that no matter what it is, if the movie Bill is doing it, if I'm watching the movie Bill doing it and I don't touch it, then I'm not going to be in judgment about it.
Exactly. That's important, because if we judge ourselves, then that means we're going to judge other people as well, and you're going to get a clash of judgments, because they will judge also. So that's how conflict arises, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
This in the last paragraph on page 95, it says it is. Let me go one up. We do not have to go anywhere or do anything in order to be in touch with the peace and the happiness that are the nature of ourself. We simply notice that we are that. It is for this reason that the sage
Ashtavakra.
Ashtavakra said, happiness belongs to that supremely lazy person for whom even blinking is too much trouble.
Yes, I recommend reading the Ashtavakra Gita. It's a lovely book. It's not very long. It's easy to read if you get a good translation, and it's very direct and forthright, and just as that statement was. So it's lovely. It's a good
Oh,
read.
that sounds good. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to get off this call and order that book.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome time. I don't think we have anything else to look at in this chapter, right? I think we're finished. And next week is next week is not chapter 11. Next week is Rupert. He'll be with us live. And if you have questions you sent to me, please send them again. And I encourage you to, if you have a real burning question, to put your hand up early when he comes next week, because he probably will have a stack of hands that don't get answered. Or email me that if you would like, and we'll look forward to having Rupert next week, and then we'll move on and we'll finish up the book with the last 2 chapters after that. But everyone be ready to see Rupert next week. Jenny, thank you always for being such an awesome, just available co-host and substitute, and like Rupert in a woman's body. Really appreciate all that you bring.
Thank you, Bill, for inviting me again so unexpectedly. It was lovely.
And we'll see you all next week. Have an awesome rest of the week, and we'll see you then.